The army in the hills. The king of Aram paced the stone floor of his war tent, his brow tight with frustration. Each time he planned an strike against Israel, his ambush was discovered. His soldiers arrived to find empty roads and silent valleys. It was as if the enemy could see through mountains and hear whispers carried by the wind. He summoned his officers. "One of you is betraying me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "My plans reach the king of Israel before my armies do." The officers exchanged uneasy glances until one stepped forward. "My lord, none of us are traitors, but in Israel there is a prophet who tells their king even the words you speak in your bedroom. His name is Elisha." The king's eyes narrowed. A single man undoing his campaigns? "Find him," he ordered, "and bring him to me." Scouts soon reported that Elisha was staying in a small city surrounded by rolling hills. Under the cover of night, the king of Aram sent horses, chariots, and a strong force of soldiers. They marched silently and encircled the city, sealing every road before dawn. Inside the city, the air was cool and gray with early morning mist. Elisha's servant rose first and stepped outside. When he looked up, his breath caught in his throat. The hills were alive with the glint of armor. Chariots stood like dark teeth against the skyline, and soldiers ringed the city in a tightening circle. He ran back inside, panic in his voice. "Master, we are surrounded. What shall we do?" Elisha rose calmly, as if he had expected this moment. His face held no fear. He placed a reassuring hand on the servant's shoulder. "Do not be afraid," he said gently. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." The servant stared at him, bewildered. He had seen only the enemy. Elisha stepped outside and lifted his eyes toward the hills. He prayed softly, asking that his servant's sight be opened. In that instant, the world seemed to shimmer. The servant gasped. The hills were no longer filled only with the enemy. Surrounding Elisha, blazing brighter than the rising sun, were horses and chariots of fire. They stood in silent ranks, stretching across the hills like a living wall of light. Awe replaced fear. The servant realized they were not alone. They were guarded by a power beyond any earthly army. As the Aramean soldiers began their descent toward the city, Elisha stepped forward again. He prayed that the approaching army would be struck with blindness. At once, confusion rippled through their ranks. The soldiers stumbled and hesitated, their vision clouded. They could see shapes and shadows, but nothing clearly. Elisha walked out to meet them. "This is not the road," he called, "nor is this the city you seek. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." Disoriented and uncertain, the soldiers obeyed. Elisha led the entire force away from the hills and down the winding roads until they reached the heart of Israel's capital. The city gates closed behind them with a heavy thud. Then Elisha prayed again. "Open their eyes that they may see." The haze lifted. The soldiers blinked and looked around. Instead of a small, defenseless city, they found themselves surrounded by the armies of Israel. Spears and shields gleamed from every side. Panic surged through their ranks as they realized they were trapped. The king of Israel hurried to Elisha's side, excitement flashing in his eyes. "My father, shall I strike them down? Shall I kill them?" But Elisha shook his head. "Do not kill them. Would you kill those you have captured with your own sword and bow? Set food and water before them. Let them eat and drink, and then return to their master." The king hesitated, surprised by the mercy in the prophet's command. Yet he obeyed. A great feast was prepared. Tables were set, and the captured soldiers were given bread and water. Suspicion slowly gave way to astonishment as they realized they were not to be slaughtered, but treated with kindness. They ate in silence at first, glancing nervously at their hosts. But as the meal continued, tension softened. The soldiers who had marched with violence in their hearts now sat as guests, their lives spared by the very people they had come to harm. When the feast ended, they were released and sent back to their king. They returned with a story no one would forget. The prophet who had led them blind into the enemy's capital, the unseen army that guarded him, and the mercy that had turned captives into witnesses. After that day, the raiding parties from Aram ceased their attacks for a time. The hills that had once echoed with the threat of war grew quiet, and the memory of fire and mercy lingered in the hearts of all who had seen it. Summary and application to daily life. The account of Elisha and the army of Aram, which unfolds near Dothan and ends in Israel, offers several powerful lessons for everyday life. First, it teaches us about perspective in moments of fear. Elisha's servant saw only the enemy and panicked, much like we often do when facing overwhelming problems. Elisha, however, trusted that unseen help was present. In daily life, this reminds us to pause and look beyond immediate circumstances. Whether through faith, reflection, or support from others, we often have more resources than we first realize. Second, the story highlights the power of calm leadership. Elisha's composure steadied his servant and shaped the outcome of the crisis. In our work, families, and communities, responding calmly rather than reactively can transform tense situations. A steady presence can reassure others and open the door to wiser decisions. Third, and most strikingly, the story emphasizes mercy over revenge. When the captured soldiers were vulnerable, the king wanted to destroy them. Elisha chose compassion instead. In everyday conflicts, arguments, workplace disputes, or personal betrayals, we are often tempted to win by hurting the other side. This passage suggests that unexpected kindness can break cycles of hostility and create opportunities for peace. Finally, the events encourage trust and guidance beyond our limited understanding. The servant's eyes had to be opened to see the full reality around him. Similarly, growth in daily life often requires us to seek deeper insight through learning, prayer, meditation, or honest conversation, so we can act with wisdom rather than fear. Together, these lessons invite us to live with courage, calmness, mercy, and trust. By practicing these qualities in small, everyday moments, we can influence our surroundings just as powerfully as the prophet influenced the fate of armies.